In 1792, the United States Congress has approved the use of dollars as the country's currency. Back then, the US was a small and relatively weak nation. The dollar was used primarily within its borders. Fast forward to today, the dollar is a global currency. If the world were to vote for their favorite thing, it would probably be US dollars. Note, why is the dollar used worldwide? It is because the credibility of the dollar is unprecedentedly strong. Why is the dollar's credibility strong? Let's delve into it. The most important thing to note is that the dollar is not issued by the US government. It is issued by a private institution. Even before the Federal Reserve was established, it was private banks that signed agreements with the US government to handle currency matters. Typically, these contracts lasted for more than 20 years at the time. By 1913, the Federal Reserve was officially established as primarily a private institution. The US government doesn't have a stake in the Federal Reserve. Not a single share. The biggest shareholders of the Federal Reserve are major private banks like Citibank, JP Morgan, and Rothschild family, which you might recognize from various conspiracy theories. Are these private institutions and banks that hold all these shares? The US government doesn't own a single share in the Federal Reserve. The government only has a rubber stamp right, meaning when the board of directors decide who the chair of the Federal Reserve is, the president just needs a stamp approval. The US president has never voted in a decision made by the board of the Federal Reserve, and neither the president nor the Congress has any real power of the Federal Reserve. The US Congress can only create new legislation, but even with new laws, they won't be given the power to print money. So the Federal Reserve remains a purely private institution. The dollar, as we all know today, is backed by a reserve. Without this reserve, the paper money won't have any value. Some countries' currency are backed by gold. Like Chinese currency was once backed by silver and then gold, and now it's backed by a reserve. The Federal Reserve's dollar, on the other hand, is backed by the US Treasury bonds. For every dollar's worth of US government bonds, the Federal Reserve receives $1 of currency. The Federal Reserve has no desire to print a bunch of money and dilute its own assets. Firstly, I believe it is improbable. Secondly, why would a private institution want to dilute the US government's debt if more money is printed? The first to be hurt would be the banks that hold the most dollars. These banks are the shareholders of the Federal Reserve. Why would they want to hurt themselves by printing more money? That's the first point. The second point is that the US government also doesn't want to do this. The money in the hands of the Americans is all in dollars. Other countries have different currencies, with some of their foreign reserves in dollars. If the US dares to print a large amount of money, the first to be hurt would be the Americans, whose money is all in dollars. Very few Americans hold yen or yuan or even gold. If you start printing more money, you are essentially robbing the American people. So firstly, the government doesn't have the right to print money. Secondly, why wouldn't they dare to do that? Thirdly, the Federal Reserve doesn't print money and has no motivation to dilute its most valuable asset. The US Congress won't grant the government the right to print money. And given that the Federal Reserve has always been controlled by these financial magnates, it's unlikely that they would do anything to help the US government.